and welcome. It's Arron here from Black Road Gaming's Meta Monday, and tonight, as you can see, I've got two special guests with me. But one of those guests is actually going to be the new permanent face of the Meta Monday, and that is Elder Toby. There he is! Look at him looking as Mormon as ever, and we love it. Give us a wave, Toby.
Hello, I'm actually wearing a hoodie today, which I think is character growth. But yeah, I usually do look exactly like that. For anyone that doesn't know, I work in sales, and then that means I wear a suit all the time, so I do get ribbed endlessly at club when I turn up in a full suit.
I love it, and it's going to actually stay for the stream until I get bored of it. Anyway, my second guest tonight, and he's somebody who me and Dom have been chatting for a while. We finally got to meet at EA Slam, where I got to watch his literal face get punched in by Clement Tenard. He was taking CSM. It was taking a off-meta list, which arguably, probably at the time it was. And he got smashed in. But it was great meeting him. He is also the face of Mind Goblins, and he is also the face of the Let's Talk Wargaming podcast, which I was on the other night, and I've put the link in there. Dom, give us a wave, mate.
Alright, that's quite the intro. And yes, I did get my face smashed in. Oh my god, that was Wraith Knight meta. That was disgusting. I remember the first turn of that event. And I was just like, I desperately need first turn, didn't get it, and then he picked up about 1,000 points in like the first 30 seconds of the game, and I was like, right, worked hard all weekend just for this, have I? What have I done wrong to deserve this?
You know what? I've always felt like the Wraith Knight cannons. They're a certain shape, right? They're a perfect shape to go through your back door. And unfortunately, my man...
I'm probing.
You were probed. It was basically like you've just had your prostate looked at.
Oh, God.
It was rough.
Yeah. That's the wrong Aeldari for that getting done.
The spiky boys usually do that.
Yeah, they kind of like to have your legs in a saddle and get you going. Anyway... I'm gonna pass you over to my lovely new co-host, Elder Toby. Get us going, Elder.
Yeah, well, Dom, obviously it's the first time that we've met, so lovely to meet you, and thank you so much for joining us. Do you want to start by telling us a little bit more about why you play the hobby, and sort of what's brought you to this sort of competitive journey?
Yeah, I basically started playing competitively properly just after COVID, because one of my friends, Louis Simmons, who was part of the the D6 Evolution podcast, he was desperate to get back into to competitive play after COVID, and he needed someone to kind of practice regularly with, so he basically roped me into playing competitively, and then I basically just been on like a journey ever since. So that as soon as we came out of COVID, I was on like a massive like Drukhari hype, and they were mental good back then, and it was a bit disgusting coming out of lockdown, and then just having this ridiculously powerful army, which really didn't get nerfed for about almost like 6 months, it seemed. And I basically did really well. Then just thought I'd try and join the club, so I joined Vanguard Tactics for about a year, and then at the end of my time at Vanguard, I was like, you know what, I kind of feel like doing something else. And then I went to the international team tournament with some of my good friends, and they call themselves the Mind Goblins, which stands for Mind Goblin These Nuts. And we ended up from being like the unknown team, we ended up coming second, which was a bit crazy considering we literally met on the Friday, and ended up coming second on the Sunday, only losing to Team England. And we did really well, and we really enjoyed it. So I said, why don't we just make the team official? Like Nick and me just started scouting people, and I did all like the branding of like our jerseys and stuff like that. And then I basically just started headhunting some people that I knew were leaving some teams or were trying to join teams, and I just basically we made Mind Goblins official, and then we've been like crushing it ever since. And I like to call us like a friendly bunch of savages, and yeah, we're up for like a good time when we go to events. This is one of my favorite thing about going to events is the social side. It's like, yes, you go with like your team and there'll be like 6 of you in like an Airbnb or like a hotel, but then like you're helping each other during the day and you're checking in, like drinking and having a good time. Then in the evening you do the same again. You like talk about lists and all that sort of stuff, and for the pairings the next day go for burgers, beers, and it's just nice being part of like that sort of environment. And another thing that the Mind Goblins like helped me and all our players especially is we wanted that community that a lot of people pay for with these coaching services and like Discords, but we wanted to create an environment where our game would be elevated, because we have players who run all the different factions, so when the meta props up we can talk to each other. We do regular scrimmages on TTS, and we try our best to like really stress test everything. And like we like, for instance, I on Sausage Gone, I couldn't go to Coventry sadly, so what I decided to do instead is have a day of testing some nasty CSM lists with like 5 other lads, and like there was players like James Marsden there who was helping as well. And you know, it's that sort of mentality keeps us all like on our toes and keeps us fresh. So that's what I really gained from joining the competitive scene is the people you meet, and the team that I've got at the moment, which is everyone's awesome, but you know, we are savages. We will smile at you, but we will get you.
I think that's always a nice kind of vibe, the whole smiling assassin kind of shtick.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah,
I think it's a nice quirk of Warhammer that I've seen coming. So I come from a competitive Magic background, and seeing the difference is particularly because it's those 2-day events. That team vibe, I think, is quite a bit stronger when it comes to Warhammer. But if we had to push you on a favourite moment, I know that might well end up being the ITT, but if we had to push you for a favourite moment, what would it be and why?
Favorite moment of what, this season or last season or what?
Yeah, let's go this season. Yeah, let's go. Let's try this season.
This season.
Now there's a right answer here.
There is a right answer.
There is a right answer.
I know what the right answer is, and my favorite moment was going to this fantastic tournament. Nah, I'm kidding. My favorite personal accomplishment this year was when I finally got my payback, got my own back, and managed to finally beat Vic at one of the team tournaments. He was playing his nasty Eldar. I was playing my off-meta demons list, which was just the cheapest units I could find, and just MSUing them everywhere at the end of the ninth. And for me, it was like a big accomplishment, because he's got me twice before, and it's always been at like the late rounds of events, and it was like a big step forward to me. And it was because of being part of the Mind Goblins and having that sort of like group around you, which really helps. It helps it was a team event as well, because we're playing Team Ignite. But Mind Goblins has done some real good stuff. I was really proud of Aiden this year, going undefeated and making it into the shadow round of LGT this year. He's one of our Marine players, and he did exceptionally well. And then we had this weekend just gone with Coventry, we had Dan, who wins every painting award going, when only one loss at Coventry after like 8 rounds, which you know, I'm chuffed to the bits with that, because he's been working his ass off, and like it's like having the most beautiful army, but also he's very good on the tabletop. So it's that community we have, which I want to express my gratitude for with the Mind Goblins.
So it's very similar to that Black Crow, except we have like some of our players who do very well at events. We have like our players who are just coming in. We take very much kind of maybe not like you guys, but we take guys who are literally just coming into the competitive scene, and we try and turn them and help them, and give that sort of mentality that you've got to be smiling, happy, take a loss,
win the right way.
Win the right way. So Toby is one of my recruits actually. So and I remember the first time me and Toby played. He came around my house, and at it didn't go well. Like I beat him pretty convincingly, and I said to Toby, I was like, Toby, look, you're pre-planning without even thinking what cards you've drawn. You don't know what you need to achieve until you flip those cards. If you're going tactical, if you're going fixed, it's a very different story. But when you were playing tactical, Toby would literally already made up his mind he was going to do something. Then he was screwed, and I was like, well, this is great. I'll just counter here, score my points, job done. Now he's a bit of a different beast, and so much so that the latest RTT, it was me and him fighting for 3-0 that we both went to. So
the rival.
Yeah, so Toby has gone from very much learning. He went to EA Slam, which was his first proper competitive GT, which was a big GT, competitive one. And some extremely good players there. There's a guy in the middle with a Mind Doblins thing going on right there. He did all right. But Toby held his own against Clement. He held his own against a few of the other Aeldari, and he held his own against Paul Bridge as well. You paired into 3 vicious players, but you didn't let them walk all over you. And I think at any event, if that's your first event, if you've won 2 and then you pair into those 3 and lose all 3, I think people would be okay with that, because all 3 of those players were top ranked players.
Did well. That's really good.
Yeah, I mean, it was a really good experience. It was a fun time to be doing it. It was right at the end of that Aeldari winter, and I think I did get my ass handed to me by Wraith Knight Incarn, by Chris, the chap that came second from 6++, lovely bloke. And actually, to be honest, particularly the Eldar players that I played against, they were some of the most fun that I had all weekend, particularly my second game, when my poor old opponent couldn't roll dice to save his life. His rollings were some of the worst that I've ever seen. He still did pick up 900 points of my army on turn 2, but it was but he was cursing his luck, bless him. I think he felt a bit bad because he was cursing his luck the whole time, and then suddenly picked up 900 points.
God.
But I think it's something that I've noticed, and I'd be really interested to hear your opinion on this, Dom. When you're first breaking into that meta scene, let's say maybe you played locally a bit, you've done reasonably well locally. How did it feel when you sort of made that step up? Did you have to kind of put your ego aside, accept that you were going to have to take those losses? Because I know with me, it was a real big journey of going, okay, accept that you can't just walk in here and start kicking everyone's ass like you did at club level, because that was a completely different rule. No one really knew the rules that well. How was that experience for you?
It was a weird one, because it was a bit of an accelerated one for me, because I was playing Drukhari at the time, so I was kicking people's asses when I didn't mean to at the start. But then, because I was playing such a tricksy army where, yes, it was almost 500 points undercosted, you still died super easy. So you had to get the mentality, the tiny details in the game of movement and all of these different shenanigans that you can get away with. But because it was so fragile, I had to be quite cautious. And that kind of mindset jump I realized after the second event, when I didn't think about my turns, I just kind of did the turns. And then I wasn't regretting what I was doing. I was basically staging, setting up, and everything was just working. And I've got quite a good tactical mind anyway. I've always loved strategy games since I was like young, and like it comes quite second nature to me. But when I made the jump on the tabletop, I realized that I think it was actually at it was when I was playing, well, Aiden, who is now Mind Goblins, but it was when I was playing him at a event down south somewhere, and he was playing Death Watch. I was playing Drakari, but his list was way better into mine than his. And I simply just move blocked him with my raiders to stop him from getting up the board. And it was when I was making those conscious, like, game-changing decisions, it became apparent. And it was almost like someone had like giving me glasses for the first time. I've been like, oh, this is how you play. It was really weird. But like, I've had a few of my mates like recently who have gone from like really wanting to be competitive, and then now they are just savages. Like, if I give a shout out to my friend Ross, who has been like, he's been a really good scrimmage partner of mine for a long time, and recently he has made like a massive jump from being just like a good player to being like someone I generally worry about every time I play, because he's got the tricksy mindset in that he'll bring something that I won't realize. Like we played a game on the weekend, and I went first, and which gave me a massive advantage, but then I didn't account for certain things going on, which still took me completely by surprise. And he's very good at his tactics. So it's that sort of thing. Like, what helps players make that jump as well is having that community around you. So having like Black Crow Gaming or like Mind Goblins around you, just being around those players and people and that community really elevates people, because otherwise you're kind of stuck to your ways and you don't really ask the questions. You don't get people telling you, no, that's probably not the best list you can run. Why have you thought about this? Like, it's almost like using your mates as like Warhammer therapy. Like it's like that.
Yeah, I know. I really like that analogy of that Warhammer therapy, and I completely agree with you on community. I think for me that's been my favourite part. You know, it was great for me, particularly to meet Arron and the rest of the Black Crow guys, and now I'm sitting here doing this, making all of our fun videos and things like that as well with them. The animated stuff. It's been a real good escape from quite an intense job for me. And actually, an example that we had today, where obviously Arron introduced me to Black Crow Gaming. I met someone through Warhammer called Kyle, who now is joining us for the ITT as part of Black Crow, so hopefully doing his first GT soon as well. Oh, nice. And has learned by playing through us. And then a gentleman who actually he had, unfortunately, such a negative experience at a tournament on Sunday that he said he felt like giving up, but Kyle had told him about our club, our Kronos club, so big shout out to them. And he's playing me tomorrow. He's looking at getting into competitive again. He's talking with a bit more excitement, and that's someone that I think, you know, has that real potential to hopefully one day be a Black Crow. So that kind of, once you start that pendulum effect, well, no, I guess more dominoes, but like you get the point. I think it's so beautiful seeing that community, and it sounds like you guys are having that exact same experience. It's nice to see these strong networks starting to build up, just because of, let's be honest, toy soldiers and war Barbies. So
no, it's quite interesting like that, because we actually got one of our last to join this year. Was Johnny Simmons, and we actually got him from EA Slam, because I played him and I was so impressed, like I could see how he viewed the game. I saw he didn't have a team name, and I was like, hey, so what do you think about joining a team? Is that sort of your vibe? And he was like, yeah, I'd like to one day. And then like I messaged the boys later and I was like, we need to get him. He's well good, and he's only been playing since like February, but he's like #1 admech in the world. Like, he's just mental good.
Oh wow, yeah, that guy. I remember him. Blimey, he was next level.
Yeah. So he was like, he beat Jack Tai. He every single person he gave like a complete run for money. But sadly, when I played him, my army was like 250 points undercosted, and it was before the nerf. And my Forge Fiends just had a field day at his like toughness 5 3 wound models. Like, it was just plasma dead. And yeah. So like, just going to events and stuff, you can just recruit people that you play and you can get like impressed with like that. So yeah, Slam's great for that.
So that's why we love tournaments, and the whole reason we are here tonight is to talk tournaments. Now, this weekend we saw quite a large tournament actually, and it was, what better way to kick off Meta Monday than start having a look at some of these tournaments. And we have, unfortunately I wasn't able to work out the bugs of being able to get the list up for everybody tonight. However, my lovely co-hosts tonight have also got them going, so we're going to have a look at the Meta Monday. And the first Meta Monday that we're going to look at tournament is the Coventry 3-day Super Major. Now, the reason I'm saying 3-day and 2-day is because you could either go to a 3-day event, which was 8 rounds, which is a marathon of Warhammer.
That's too much.
Yeah, it's loads. Or you can go to the two traditional 2-day event, 5 rounds, which is more friendly, not only for your family, for your wife, and also your wallet. Anyway, we're going to have a look at the Coventry Super Major 3-day event. And I'm going to do a big shout out. We had 3 Black Crow players go. All 3 of them relatively new to the team, and you know, they went and they had a strong showing. There was a 4-4, there was a 3-5, and bear in mind, one guy, this was his first ever Warhammer 40,000 GT event, so this is his first competitive event, and he went and jumped in at the Coventry Super Major, which is nuts, but he did it. Anyway, I digress. Let's talk about the meta. So, in first place, we've got CSM, and I'm actually going to ask Dom. Dom, you're our guest tonight. Talk us through what this man's list was and who he is.
So, Liam VSL, he is the winner of the just gone LGT, London Grand Tournament. I think he's from Belgium or something like that, and he's massively into WTC. Into the WTC, and his kind of like style of list is very MSU, sort of, we take the cheap units that are slightly undercosted at the moment. So he's taken like the list that if you're going to meta chase and copy and paste your list, which I don't agree with, which is why I run off meta lists. So he's running 3 Chaos Lords, 3 units of Chosen in 3 separate rhinos. But what's really interesting about this list that he kind of changed from going from LGT to this one. He added the extra rhino in. So instead of going for a big brick of 10, 2 5s, he's gone for a 5 and a 5 and a 5. But he's also accompanied them with he's given them, what are they? Let me scroll down his list. Yeah, Rubric Marines. Yeah. Rubric Marines is quite an interesting choice here, because they got 3 Warp Flamers in each. They have the Pistol Flamer on the Sergeant, and he's got his like cheeky little Warp Smite. But what they also have is a Soul Reaper, which is all of that combination is really good, and they have a very efficient data sheet for 105 points. They're very good at basically clearing stuff that you don't need the Chosen to clear off objectives. So if I'm tagging an objective with, you know, Lights from Cultists, instead of getting the Chosen out and running and charging and potentially losing that asset the following turn to shooting, get the Rubrics out. They have inbuilt data sheet abilities, which gives them more potency on objectives, like rerolling to wound, and so they're very good coming out of the rhinos instead of having the Lords with the Chosen coming out. And then it's very smart. It's very good. There's so many units. There's 3 Chaos Lords, 3 in 3 rhinos with 3 Chosen, and the Rubric Marines. Followed up to that, he has some shooting, which got 2 Forge Fiends, 1 Undivided, which outflanks and comes in and just rerolls everything that you forgot to hide and just goes boop, that's dead. Noble Forge Fiend stays at the back, and basically just every turn just goes Nurgle, so you can't shoot it. And then you've got the 2 squads of Obliterators and Warp Talons, and Blue Scribes, which do kind of the killing and MSU game, where, because Obliterators can jump in, melt or something, and charge something else, because they slap in combat as well, because they got power fists, so people really underestimate them. So his MSU build is very good at playing fixed, so it's very good at on the diagonal missions doing deploy, teleport, homers, engage, and all those sorts of secondaries, but also good in the tactical ones where you aren't that comfortable with taking fixed. So it's the list. It's the list. It's got cultists for sticky, it's got MSU, and it usually trades better than you do because the Chosen and the Chaos Lords are very undercosted. I don't like the playstyle because it's not really how I like to play this sort of stuff, because it reminds me of the old Drakari times where you basically have transports go up, they dish out your combat units, and then the rhinos go off and do deploy, teleport home, and move, block, and hold objectives. It's very like, I'm going to keep you over there while I kind of win the game. That's the sort of list.
Right. It sounds like it's something that you've obviously looked at in quite a bit of depth.
Yes.
And I know you are a very good player. You've got good pedigree, so I think it makes sense for you to be able to talk about the CSM the way you have done. Now I'm going to go on to Toby, and this is going to be quite interesting because I'm going to see what Toby in comparison. Toby is novice in comparison to you when it comes to tournaments. However, Toby has a very analytical mind, so I don't know how well he knows Chaos Space Marines, but I'm going to ask him to have a look at the person who came second. So, Toby, can you tell us who that was and kind of give us...
Great list.
Yeah, of course. So it's this kind of unknown player, Manny Chima. Don't think many people have heard of him. But yeah, obviously...
I heard he's got something to do with Glasshammer.
No, maybe Perspex Hammer, I think.
What is it, like cardboard terrain, like a tree that I'd give to my toddler?
Something like that.
Yeah, that's about right.
Well, yeah, so it obviously, it was Manny, and we're just going to very quickly run through the list, and then we'll talk about some sort of initial thoughts. So we've got the Triple Chaos Lord again. But then we go into the Triple Dark Commune. I know if you followed him on Instagram, you'd have seen him painting them up ready for LGT. So it looks like he's kept the list reasonably similar, although that might be complete nonsense.
Why do I feel like he might be copying a certain person in the middle? Because I remember you doing something very, very similar, Dom, before this became a thing.
My off-meta list.
That got absolutely shat on the Discords. Am I right?
Yeah, everyone was just like, oh, why are people taking dark communes, or why are people taking a curse? And I was like, they're amazing. They're so good. And then the only thing that was stopping them from being good was like if you came up against basically Eldar or the indirect guard lists or desolators. But now desolators aren't around, and the indirect list is kind of a problem. So you still have that, but that's why you Nurgle a unit and outflank the others. They are just so points efficient and so hard to remove. They're just fantastic. But anyway, I love Manny's list, and I actually thought it was going to win because in my head I couldn't see VSL's list doing the amount of damage that they could potentially do on the hit back, because I just think he just can't outtrade them like Manny's list. It's so good.
Well, before Dom continues to nurture this semi that he's got going on, Toby, will you carry on, mate?
Yeah, so obviously it's the Triple Dark Commune. Then some legionaries, combat-focused legionaries with Slanesh, obviously because that gives them good abilities. Nurgle Rhinos for the lone op stratagem. Some then accursed cultists, everything like that. So a little bit. I think those blobs just to try and be difficult to remove, do all your missions, and obviously they do trade up their undercosted units. Chosen, because Chosen, you can always kind of expect to see them, as Dom's already touched on, they are an undercosted and very powerful unit. And then a Forge Fiend, and it's undivided, which I thought was quite interesting in that one. It's clear that he's going a little bit more in that push straight down the gullet with his rhinos rather than potentially sort of sniping from the back. I think with the Forge Fiend is obviously that's not Nurgle, but I guess with the rerolls it's maybe that's slightly more surgical, coming in from reserve, that kind of thing, and then just some Nurglings to score. And I've got to say, I think if I was to look at both of them, I actually prefer Liam's list, I think. But I think that might be a bit of bias in terms of how I like to play. I do like that kind of pin your opponent in one position and then start doing your thing around the battlefield. And I think this one feels a little bit more like a it kind of blobs up in multiple different places because it has all of those units that do trade up. But I can see why Liam might have been able to sort of pin him a little bit more in place. I think it ended up being a 10-point game, maybe. So it was a very, very close finish as well. And I think what we're seeing here potentially is a list from Manny that's probably really strong into the meta in general, and just a really strong list. While as I think Liam's maybe was a little bit more tailored to that particular day, and I think that's a lot of the time where these things come down to. If you tailor it right to what your opponents are going to end up bringing, which obviously you can't really tell unless you hack their Facebook, I guess. But I think there's a lot of play in both, and I can see why you would aim for the dark commune list and everything like that. But in terms of intent, I really think that it's elevated that sense that you win in the movement phase, even further than maybe in ninth. And I do feel like those pin in place lists are then better placed rather than the sort of the blob lists. But equally, we're going to talk about something I think in general with the meta that might prove that to be complete and utter bollocks. So we'll see what everyone else thinks.
So I've got a quick question. This one is from guys on the live chat. This is for Dom. This is why I like doing live, because you get people's little inputs.
Oh no!
So Dom, I've got one for you. It is, why are you such a nut? No, it's so basically the question is, how do you go about finding and planning which larger events to go to? That's from the Small Gamer.
Oh, how do I go about it? Well, to be fair, it's quite tricky, right? Because I like to go to, like, because I'm in a team and I want to do well in the ITC, I have to go to so many of the massive super majors every single year to be able to be like relevant in my team and relevant in like the ITC discussion. But then a lot of the actual best events are ones that aren't like the massive super majors, like yours, like with the East Anglia Slam. I thought it was one of the best events I went to this year, and it's because it was different. But in regards to the question, how do I go about choosing? So I go about choosing, one, I go to my team, any of you guys free over these next coming events. These have popped up from events I went to last year, or some friends are running. Do you want to go? And then if there's like 2 or 3 or 4 of you that can go, it's much easier to organise like going to an event, because then you got people to stay with, you got people to go for beers with, all that sort of stuff. But I also use BCP, because what you can do is from your search location, you can actually if you pay for BCP as well, it helps. You can basically have a search radius of like 100 miles or whatever, and then you can type in Warhammer events within a month, and then you can kind of go, okay, so these are all the ones closest to me. I can kind of go for this. This is like a 40-player one. This is if I'm free for like a day. Or if there's like a 60-player one, I can kind of think about going. But it all depends on like if you're free. But the best way to do it is like talk to your friends, try and organise like a get together, because then it doesn't seem so lonely when you go. I remember when I was going to events at the start of my Warhammer playing, I used to go quite a lot by myself, just because I just wanted to, and I didn't have that community really around me. But now I know I can just go into any of my groups of friends and be like, I want to go to this event. Anyone want to go? And then someone will raise their hand, and then I'll go to events with them. But yeah, there's loads of places that you can kind of get all of these events from. BCP is really good. And yeah, there's forums, there's different websites. One of my friends, Mark, who runs his tournaments in Winchester, his He's actually got a website where it shows you all of the events around the area, so not just his. It's mainly so he can keep track of his events, but it also means that you can kind of go on it and go, oh, cool. So there's like an EA Slam one then, and there's like a Bristol Warriors one then, or whatever. So it's easier to kind of find them because if you're going on Facebook, it's actually quite hard to find a lot of events unless you're like liking pages quite a lot.
Yeah, it's I think it is difficult. Like, we don't have like a central hub which just lists. Like, it's almost like we need somebody out there to just build a web page just purely to just advertise the hundreds of tournaments that happen in the UK on a weekly basis. We're gonna move on. Thank you for that. Thank you for that question. Thank you for the answer, Dom. That was really good. And the small gamer, I hope that was what you were looking for. We're going to go on to the third placing Aeldari, and then after that we'll just kind of be like 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th. We won't go through the list. But the third placing player, Dom, I'm going to ask you to kind of talk about this person and have a look at the list if you can. Tell us about Aeldari in third place. Not a shock. They're still dominating at the very top.
Yeah, they're the best army in the game. It's like, it's not even. I don't think it's close. Like, when I was playing in the semi-final at Hellstorm Wargaming a few weeks ago, and I played against pretty much this list. And because I wasn't aggressive and I just tried to play the trade game, it just smashed me. Like, it's on live stream if you want to go watch me getting battered. Like, it's so good. Like, it's so efficient. So basically, what the Night Spinners do, they have probably the most efficient shell of indirect in the game. So what they do is they basically they do mortal wounds. They slow you, make sure you can't advance. They also 2 damage. They also hit you from outside line of sight. And you've got 3 of them. So turn 1, he just goes 1, 2, 3. All units are half speed, and they can't advance. And also they're taking loads of damage as well. And they can, if they get lucky in certain units, they can kind of slow roll. So if you get loads of shots and let's say something that they don't like, so that's not even a threat, but Reaver jetpacks, they know you need them turn 1 to be able to do a secondary that you've chosen because you go and fix. It goes bang, 2 dead, and he just goes, all right, last one, that's a 6, that's 2 wounds gone, that's the 3rd unit dead, third model dead. So it's the efficiency with the mortals, the ability to slow, the ability to like not be able to see you and just constantly hit you from outside line of sight. Backed up with 3 squads of warp spiders who can go the entire length of the board in 1 turn with flamers. Why do they have torrent? Dunno, they just do. They're very good. So if you're Eldar player, you better put in 3 in your list. Then it's got Swooping Hawks, again, just super cheap, super good at what they're doing. Spirit Seer, who's going to be buffing the Wraith Guard unit with -1 to wound and bringing 1 back. Then you have the All-Tark Whale Leaper, who I believe is the lone operative one, who basically just allows for really good secondary play. Fugan Ra, he is able to one-shot a Land Raider in one round of shooting, and he's got 1 shot. Interesting, because of fate dice, it's just mad. And he's 115 points, so he can just walk up to something and just give it the bad touch. Then Yin Khan, who's going to be teleporting around, so really, really good, and he's got a 2 damage flamer. Then you got the Wraith Guard, who are almost uninteractorable. You line up all your guns, they go, is that the end of your movement phase? Yeah? Cool, I'm just going to Phantasm behind cover. And now you're all in the open. So in my turn, I'm going to move out to exactly in range of all of your units because you've already measured it all. And I'm just going to go boop. If you do shoot them, however, and you do manage to get something in range, then they can shoot for free something else. Full ballistic skill. So they're just like a massive headache. And yeah, it's insanely good list. It's got so much scoring, it's got so much anti-horde, so much anti-tank, it's got loads of slowing ability, and most Eldar lists are this exact list copy and pasted. It's like VSL's list, and and this list. Like, Knuckles just built an insanely efficient list. ESL just built an insanely efficient list for a different army. They're just this, and they're some of the best players in the world, and they will be able to beat anyone with these lists.
Yeah, and they just don't, like, it is a copy and paste, and that is a shame. However, there is a however, because in third and fourth is Aeldari. Now, a few months ago, bottom of the pack, scrubbing the bottom, was Votan, and now in fifth, sixth, and seventh at the Coventry Super Major, Votan are like one of the best armies going. And Toby, you're gonna tell us a little bit about this, because I know you've you know a little bit. What do you make of that? How do you feel about the fact that Toby that Votan are doing so well?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really good for the game, because I know that a lot of people bought a lot of Votan models at the end of ninth because they were, utterly stupid. And Games Workshop went, right, how do we sell as many boxes to these fucking nerds? And that's what they did. And then obviously the start of 10th, I'm pretty sure I saw some people literally just throw their sprues in the bin. And I know that's a bit of an extreme reaction, but it was really disappointing for the Votan players. I'm not a Votan player myself, but they just felt that they'd just been screwed out of the game, which was a real shame, because it's a fun, very flavourful army. But now with these points drops, they are in such a positive position because they can bring so many models to the table. It's not overly flavorful, given the sort of the dwarven vibe, the race of running out of guys left, or having to clone each other. But in terms of actually the game being healthy, I think it's fantastic. Going up against these lists, suddenly you're against a horde that can shoot really well, and with the exception of possibly some Tau lists, maybe. I don't know many like full horde lists that really shoot that well. And in all honesty, I don't think Tau really fit that build that well. It's also quite a nicely internally balanced codex. There is one unit which is firmly ahead of the others, which is the Sagittars, and I think you do just see them copy and pasted into every single list. Yeah, exactly. They're just suddenly, oh, look at here are my Sagittars, and I'm down your throat. So enjoy that, kiddo. But then the Terminators that they've got, which are gorgeous models as well. They're one of the higher performing units. So there's lots of really good, interesting units suddenly performing very well, but with a lot of variety. And I think what we just complained about with Aeldari, and I think is a very, very fair complaint at this point. There is now a set sort of these are the best units, whereas maybe in Aeldari Winter there was that, do I take a Wraith Knight, do I lean into this list a little bit more, but now it's no, you do Warp Spiders, Sweeping Hawks, the character suite, and then whatever you've got some points spare for with the your Wraith Guard or your Avatar of Cain, depending on how you want to butt fuck your opponent. But I think Votan aren't like that. You can be quite diverse, even though they do have quite a small range.
At the minute.
So yeah, at the minute. And also it's not something where they've just gone, oh, by the way, you can enjoy this for the next 2 months, but we're going to nerf the shit out of this, which obviously there has been said about a lot of the Aeldari units already. We know what's the spinners, the night spinners are going to be hit, which I think is good. Because let's be honest, I don't think Games Workshop has ever quite got indirect fire right.
Don't you need to remove indirect fire from that particular chassis? Like, it's fine as a tank as itself. If it didn't have indirect fire, you would still take it.
Yeah,
with the indirect fire, it's just a bit much.
Yeah. I mean, I think if we compare it to the very quick tangent on this, the other sort of competitive indirect fire unit would probably be the one that I can think of off the top of my head is Manticores, or maybe the Basilisk with that -2 to movement. And Manticores are very, very efficient at killing things, but they don't do the mortals. They're reasonably easy to counter, and once you actually get into them, there's subtle they can do. And also, getting into them is not particularly hard because you just have to go through the guard. You don't have to worry about those units speeding around the whole thing. But when you're having to concentrate on dealing with 24-inch movement guys, which then can occasionally take one mortal wound, which they take on the Exarch anyway, so they don't care. That's where you just start struggling. And I mean, everyone that knows me quite well knows that I think Aeldari are what's the phrase? Bullshit. Yeah. Bullshit. That's the one. Bullshit. Yeah, exactly. And I think it is unhealthy for the meta. That's probably the only thing I would say that's unhealthy for the meta right now, with the exception of maybe some CSM stuff could go up in a bit of points. But
I don't like playing with them.
Yeah, but going back to the original point, Votan, great position. Very glad to see them rising to where they are, and I think it's only good for the meta.
So I just want to pop in that we've had a few comments coming through. So Tony was like, agreed. I got smashed by them at the weekend. Sam Dixon, Night Spinners are a joke. I would have loved to have the best version of the rules. Carl Moore comes in with the triple Manticore game because he's now a cool kid. And then we've got Sam coming in with why did they get no advance instead of a minus? And then out of nowhere, Liam has come in and said, leave my Eldar alone. So Toby, that's it. You're now on Liam's shit list. Good luck with that. Thanks, Liam. This is from Liam from the Liam Dempsey Show. If you guys aren't aware of it, it's my favourite YouTube going out there because he's a good crack, and he's probably the only person out there that I know that will publicly turn around and call Games Workshop a cunt.
He's well funny. I like him a lot.
That was quite possibly one of my favourite things. Also, Liam, I've got something that I think you'll approve of. As you do Sad Joe, how do you feel about this? This is Elder Toby. So don't worry, we're not going to try and give you anything, but just you can see that he is our Bible, the man with the Bible, Elder Toby. Right, let's get back to the meta. Let's get to what we're talking about.
just before we do that, I think I'm going to have to turn up at a tournament in a full-on either Mormon costume or suit, just to kind of finally fill this fantasy that you guys all seem to have.
I just feel like you're gonna knock on my door and I'm gonna have to tell you to fuck off. Right, anyway.
You do that anyway.
Anyway, let's go in. So on the 5-round day, the Coventry Super Major, so the 2-day event, Sisters came top of the pack. Unsurprisingly, we saw Aeldari, but also it was Sisters first, Death Guard third, which will very much make our homegrown Ray Black Crow player happy, because he has been a stalwart supporter of Death Guard going forward. Now, that Sisters list, Sisters have kind of come out of nowhere. And Dom, are you able to tell me a little bit about Sisters? What was it about that list that was pinging off and doing so well?
It's the Miracle Dice. So to understand what Sisters did, I had to listen to the Art of War podcast, because I've been ripping into one of our players, James Shapiro, since the start of 10th about how bad Sisters are, and then I'm eating my words now because they're just insanely good. It's the use of the Miracle Dice. They're like Fate dice on steroids, and there's no kind of limit to it, especially when they have like this massive, it's like the Triumph of St. Catherine that has like an aura of 6 inches that lets you just replace a dice with a Miracle Dice. So you have this like disgusting melter threat that every single unit, when they're under half strength, gets +1 to wound. So you got these melters that are now actually pretty good at killing tanks, rather than in every other army just being rubbish. You've also got the indirect stuff, which you can just unlimitedly use them to just like wound stuff. So it's like when you have like 10 Battle Sisters just come onto objective, they see like a dreadnought and they just go, cool, here's loads of hits. Cool, now I'm going to turn all of the dice to the dice I want, and now they're all wounded and they're AP3, AP4, so your dreadnought's dead. And then you're like, but that's like a 150 point unit that's just killed a 280 dread. How's this efficient for me? And then they can just do that over and over and over and over again. And then they've got loads of little like weird 2 model units that come out of outflank and do actions. They got loads of like really, really cool jetpack units that can just like jump around. So they do secondaries very well. You can muscle them off primary for the first couple of turns, but you're just going to get melted and shot to death. So, yeah, they're kind of the one everyone's kind of been sleeping on, and even like Art of War, we're just like we screwed up by saying that they were like one of the worst armies, but actually I think it took someone in America who went 8-0 at an event to really get people's eyes kind of twitching about them. They're very good. Just some points efficient, insanely broken mechanic, which people really weren't really thinking about because they weren't playing like Bloody Rose. They were playing a bit more of a shooty army, and a lot of the models in the old edition of Ninth weren't incredible now. And now it's more about kind of just like abusing the rules that you've got because they're way better than what a lot of armies can kind of take in a couple of turns.
Right, okay. So essentially sisters are good and they're a bit of a sleeper army, and I think your rundown was very good, and I've just had Liam in the chat basically just shouting at us, being like, I said sisters were good, no one listened to me, it's because I'm rubbish. I'm not necessarily going to agree with that, because you know what, if somebody's got the eye to call out that an army is good and is performing, and then the next thing you know they're like the new hotness. I mean, like going to Coventry, going 5-0, that's fairly, you know, you can't argue that. That's a good going. So
yeah,
what, as we're going to move down, we're going to have a look. So it was Aeldari, you know, nothing too surprising there, and we're not going to go through all of them because we'll be here all day. I want to talk about the next biggest one, which was Team Battle Brothers 40k Major GT, and I love seeing this where Orks have come top of the pack of a 5-0, and Orks are a pain in the dick because they're so good at being suppressive. Like all of a sudden you've got loads just sat there in your
the weird mushroom men.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I'm actually a big fan. Would I ever want to collect an army like that? No, because it would just, I feel like painting them would cause me to have some form of aneurysm or lose more of my hair, and I don't know if I can risk that right now in my midlife crisis. However, Toby, tell us how do you feel when have you played Orks much? You've read much into them?
So I have a very small orc collection, which is mostly in my pile of shame, and it's always something that I kind of keep an eye on and see what's doing well. I love it. I think they've got their characters, which are some of the really efficient, really difficult to kill off. But I think, as you mentioned, it's that pinning your opponent in place by quick units. And I think, to be honest, the unit that really helps them be competitive right now is the truck, which is kind of fun. Because it's able to get up the board so quickly, just put that pressure on, and then if it survives, it doesn't really matter if it does, but it can then go and do, sit on objectives or sit in corners and things like that. So there's some huge bonuses to playing it. And if you have to focus on shooting the truck so you don't then have a bunch of screaming angry funguses jumping on you, then you're getting absolutely railed by guys riding pigs. So, it's all a bit of a saga, I think, at that point. And I think there's so much threat diversity, and because they are still coming up, they haven't quite been solved yet. So, let's be honest. When we go, okay, I'm going into an Aeldari opponent, I know I need to kill their scoring units because I'm not going to be able to outmuscle them. I'm going into CSM, I need to be aware of that particular lone up stratagem. I need to know when these are going to come in so I can screen and protect myself from that outflank. Orcs, however, you look at their list and you go, okay, That's going to charge me. That's going to charge me. That's all going to charge me. What do I Overwatch? What's going to smack you hardest? So I think that there is that bit that they are the up and comer, and maybe give it a month. Maybe we'll see their stats drop a little bit. I do think that is going to be the case. But again, huge number of bodies, which we're seeing in a lot of these lists. Sisters, another good example, lots of bodies. And then that ability just to pin your opponent in one particular position and sort of smother them to death. Which I think is very orky. Sort of sit on their head and then watch them cry. That's my favourite thing to do as an orc player.
One of the best games I think I've ever seen at a tournament was where I watched Ray with his Death Guard, and so there's two things I love about Ray. Ray's a very, very knowledgeable player. He's very tactical, has done well. But when it comes to the hobby, if he's facing an army and it's the rule of cool and takes over, is it cooler to sack off all tactics and just go fuck it and just dump truck everything in the middle? So he came across a load of orcs, exactly similar sort of build, and he was like, you know what's cooler? Let's just conga line my whole army across the entire board, and I'm just going to fight the orcs in combat. And that's exactly what he did. And it was quite possibly one of the greatest things I have ever seen in that game in Warhammer 40,000 tournament. Just he's even talking about it, he knows, because it'll go down as like legend. It was just amazing. All of these Death Guard Terminators just like hugging the middle, and all these orcs just surrounding it, and it just was like, I don't even care if I win the game anymore. I'm just going for rule of cool.
Yeah,
let's just fight.
I think.
Oh, go on, Toby. Go on, mate.
I was just going to say, there's one thing to mention about Orcs now. Since the data state, they've had 10 GT wins, and I think that's something that when the data state came out, that probably wouldn't have been predicted. There would have definitely been the winners and the losers from that data state, but I don't think everyone was going Orcs 10 big tournament wins by a month or two in. So I think we kind of have to wake up. I think is this weekend is wake up to Orcs, and something that we've not spoken about yet, but I think will come up soon, is wake up to Death Guard. Those are the two big wake ups. I think that the fact that they've called that article "It's a good day to be green," that's a real alarm bells. And I think if you're not thinking about planning to go up against Death Guard and planning to go up against Orcs, you're probably going to get a fast one pulled on you at some point in your tournaments. And I think those are two armies that if you make mistakes again, they can really punish you with either that strength of charge with the Orcs, or just with the amount of debuffs in Death Guard. Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, you always kind of expect the triple plague burst crawler. They are absolutely vile and really very good. But I think the thing that's going to get you, again, triple rhino, full of plague marines, that's probably what's getting you. So we're seeing a real trend here of triple transport, undercosted infantry units in the transport aggressively pushing forward, which, has there been an army which we've discussed which doesn't do that yet, apart from maybe Aeldari? So because they can just do it themselves.
So
Meta.
That is the meta. It's rush at the minute, Russian roulette almost. So I'm gonna keep talking about these. So Orcs obviously was great, 5-0. Thousand Sons had a 5-0, which isn't unusual. Thousand Sons are in a sweet spot. Yeah. They're good, but they can pair off. So if they have good pairings, they'll do well. I'm gonna go into the Rumble Rivers, which is Fort Wayne, 60 players, 5 rounds. Death Guard won that on a 5-0. Then with CSM 4-1, Aeldari 4-1, Guard, as in, that's right, Guard.
Oh yeah, I'm getting my Guard ready right this second. They are so good.
So what's good about them, Dom? Tell us, give us, because we've got Carl in the chat who is a big fanboy. So tell me what you loving about Guard right now.
It's the fact that you can bring like a whole unit back for free every single turn, and they have like all of their weapons. They have like their six of finna pain, all that sort of stuff. But then on top of that, you can basically have just a sea of bodies where you will never get charged. Your Rogal Dawns will never get charged by anything. Rogal Dawns are just insanely good. Like they're so good. That box set, by the way, that is coming out for at Christmas for the Astra Militarum one, is like the start of a meta list. It's really weird because I was like thinking, right, the first two things I need to buy is 2 Rogal Dawns and loads of infantry. And then they saw the article and I was like, oh, that's exactly my first purchase. That's great. But on the back of that, they have access to so much indirect. Like you just have the like triple Manticore, you have a Basilisk, then you have your triple Medusa Carrier, I think it's called. They're 6 wounds, but they can like one shot a unit. They're just like 80 points there. It's absolutely disgusting on some boards, like if like on WTC boards they're insanely good. On like the normal big super major boards like UKTC, maybe not as much because there's not as big of like a footprint you can have, but it's basically to sum it up in like nuts indirect recycling of assets, forward deploying, mission play. What more do you need?
They're just, yeah, their guard was strong at the drop end of 9th. I think as the dust settles in 10th, they're going to be strong again.
Yeah.
We all need to realise we have also got a few codexes coming very shortly, and I think that's going to shake up the meta. So December, we've got, correct me if I'm wrong, we've got Admech and Necrons.
Admech's going to be interesting. Necrons I couldn't care less about because I always hate playing them no matter what. So
yeah.
I mean,
not
Admech have definitely won the... We're going to release a model for every army, but the model is going to be a unit on stilts. Now, when I dropped that out, it was both the most 40k thing I've ever seen and also the most stupid thing I've ever seen. Like, I want to hate it so much because I look at it and I think it's so dumb. But then I think of the 40k universe and I'm like, 40k is dumb. Like having units like that, it just makes the army. And I know we all think, oh, it looks terrible. Why did they do it? I tell you why they did it, and this is the only reason why they did it is because it's dumb, because it looks dumb.
And they could.
Yeah, and people were going to buy it because they're going to be like, look at my feckin' Admech on stilts. And like, that's just how it's going to be.
It's going to break like week 1 of you making it as well. You put it in your case and it's just going to go.
Oh yeah,
legs gone.
Yes, straight away.
The thing is, competitively, it's also probably going to be really good because I think someone was saying it's like a very cheap lone op unit and what's quite good for holding backfield objectives.
Lone op.
Oh yeah, very cheap lone ops, and this one just happens to also have a long range sniper.
Yeah. I think lone ops are kind of going actually.
Okay.
I was having a discussion with my friends about this. So lone ops are great until you play Space Marines, and then there's no point in having lone ops because the most broken unit in the game, in my eyes, is the Plasma Interceptors. They are mental. You cannot scream for them. They drop down on your objective 3 inches away with flat 3 damage twin link guns and just go, oh, there's your changeling. All right, bye, dead. There's your assassin, bye, dead. And there's nothing you can do about it. My mate, I was playing at the weekend, ran two units of 3 and 1 of 6. At Hellstorm Wargaming, he ran 6-6-3. And it's just like, what do you do? Like Custodes, like push forwards, they drop in behind you, kill everything in your back line, and then they just sit there being like, you going to come back and get me? Okay, cool. You coming back? I'm just going to shoot you again with plasma. Like, it's just meant a bit much. Yes. Yeah, but there are tech to get around it, but that's only like the mirror. Like
yeah.
Like infiltrators stop it, and also like dense guard bodies. But like some armies that are a bit more MSU just can't do it.
I'm not saying that I have 9 in my list for this weekend, but I have 9 in my list for this weekend.
You should have more.
I know. If I had more, I would.
So
equally, at the start of the Langdon tournament, I'd knocked one of my trays, and 5 of them just exploded off their fucking thing. So they are currently blue tacked to their bases right now.
If I never see those models ever again, I mean, not. So when me and Toby played in round 3, I had 2 Alaris Terminators. Now they're modelled with axes, so I took them with axes. I know they're not good, and they really showed they're not good because I charged them in thinking, oh, I'll deal with these plasma interceptors. If they were the spears, they would have been dealt with. It'd be over, no problem. No. 3 turns later, those bastard Inceptors killed my Terminators.
Of course they did. They're stupid.
Pistols. We love pistols.
Yeah, just like I'll stay in combat. Oh yeah, you're all dead.
Oh,
yeah. Well, I mean, I actually made a huge error in that game, which was overcharging my plus, because I was playing Firestorm, and I was like, oh no, I've got to overcharge so that I can get these Terminators on 3s rather than 4s, which I didn't actually have to do. So dumb fuck over here. But that then cost me 3 models in overcharged death. So it was pretty rough. But they are just exceptional. And I'm very much looking forward to using them. Something that I think for Guard, just going back to that point, I think they should start looking at astropaths a little bit more, because you can put a unit with an astropath. You can put it with if you really wanted to, you could put it with a 20 blob and just string it the entire backfield. What are they going to do? They're going to shoot your random irrelevant blob of death core that could or what? Do you really care if you lose that unit of death core?
Just recycle it.
Yeah, well, I mean, you wouldn't get your astropath back, but equally, it is completely irrelevant at that point. The manticores have had enough time to just absolutely chew everything to death. So I'm thinking that astropaths might actually be something that people are sleeping on, especially in those huge units, because they join units rather than just being, you're unlikely to bring 10 infiltrators. 5 infiltrators don't actually have that much, but they still have such a huge impact as someone that plays 10 of them in their army. They're utterly incredible, one of my favorite units. But that astropath, I think, has real potential that we're really not talking about, and also just, as a fun little aside, also adds benefits to artillery with the Master of the Fleet as well.
So here we go, top tip from Elder Toby, and don't ignore him, because like I said earlier, this man is a sleeping god when it comes to analysing the game. Like, he's only been in it a short while, and his Warhammer IQ is very impressive. So we're gonna move on to our next tournament, and we're gonna kind of skip through these because I want to get back to. I want to try and get to like the general results. So we're gonna look at the San Antonio shootout. Now, if you've watched any of our previous streams, you can. I don't necessarily. I'm not a big fan of the Texan meta, because typically I just think it's just a bit weird and a bit rubbish. But this kind of seems more like the meta that's currently knocking about. So CSM had a perfect 500-point weekend at this 59-player 5-round, which is ridiculous.
What was the list?
What was the list? 5-0 perfect weekend. I'm gonna let Dom sit there and try and find that for a bit, and we're gonna come back to that. Because I imagine he'll be interested to know what the hell out. This is why I'm a little bit unsure, because we get weird things when we start to go to certain places in America. Aeldari 5-0, World Eaters 4-1, Tyranids 4-1, Aeldari 4-1. It's those regulars that we're used to seeing. Death Guard.
I think just before we do quickly move on with that one, Arron, what's interesting with that one is that it does actually go a little bit against the grain, because Dark Angels and Tyranids were actually probably the largest losers of the weekend. So Tyranids particularly really struggled, and Dark Angels are in a really bad spot in terms of their performance. I think they're going to get an uptick, because I do think the infiltrating Deathwing Knights blob is pretty strong. And there was someone at Coventry who did very, very well. And thank you to that gentleman for taking his time to reply to me on Facebook as well when he posted up his list. But it's interesting to see those armies at 4-1 when actually they probably on average should have been more at the 3-2, maybe 2-3 actually would be a fairer result if we just averaged everything out.
Oh, I have the list.
You have the list.
Yeah.
Go on.
Right. Interesting. Weird. Interesting. Cool. Right. So starting off with my favourites, the Double Dark Commune. And they are both Nurgle, so one of them is going to get loan opt. Fantastic idea. Two Master Possessions, which are undivided. So Master Possessions are great because whatever unit they join, they give a Finno Pain. They also have a precision flat 3 damage shooting gun, which is really good. And they give +1 to advance and charge to whatever unit they join. Cultist Mob for Sticky, Rhino for Nurgle stuff, Double Accursed, Double Chosen, Forge Fiend, a Blitz, Warp Turn, Nurgle, Blue Cards. This is like a best of like a good codex, really. Like the Master Possessions going in with the Chosen just makes the Chosen unit like stay a little longer. It doesn't get free stratagems from the Lord does, but what it does do is give extra movement, and also it's actually very good into the mirror where the Master Possessions can actually snipe the Chaos Lords. Yeah, it's good. It's good. It's quite an interesting list. I'd say it isn't optimal, but then getting up over 500 is obviously optimal.
Yeah, well, this is where we talk about it. Like, I've always said that some of these tournaments, when you come to the Meta Monday, I advise not to take it too much, because it's not the meta that's in the UK, and as we've already talked about in previous streams, the meta varies from place to place. So when we go to like San Antonio, Texas, we all know the meta in other countries is very different. So I always say, when they watch this show, try and focus more on what we just talk about in the UK, because that is what you're more than likely going to be coming across in the meta. So if you're seeing Death Guard going 5-0, which is what happens at the Gravel Pit GT, Votan going 5-0, and you're seeing these regularly tip up, then you know that you're probably going to play a lot of these at a weekend. So Space Marines are popping up though. So I know we hadn't talked about Space Marines very much, but there's Blood Angels, there's Space Marines, there's Blood Angels. So they're all in the top 10 of this Gravel Pit GT.
Yeah.
And Toby, you're a stalwart Space Marine player, and we will go on to that. I just want to whip through some of these GTs and then get to, because when we tend to find they go down in numbers, not the relevance, but we're kind of just repeating the same information. So like Votan 5-0, CSM 5-0, Orks 5-0, Votan 5-0, Chaos Knights 5-0 at a 28-man event. So Tyranids, Aeldari, CSM, Death Guard, CSM. So look, the big takeaway here is CSM have got a massive win rate of 59%. Aeldari have still got a huge win rate of 59%. Votan have got a win rate of 58%. These three factions are all way above the magic number that Games Workshop set. So are we going to see Aeldari nerfed again in the January data slate? Are we going to see a CSM nerf? Are we going to see a Votan nerf? Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's going to happen. CSM with a 59% win rate, and they are one of the most represented armies. Now, I want to talk about, when we say represented, how many players take CSM. 59 players over all these GTs played CSM.
It's because like if someone doesn't want to collect loyalist poster boys, they go, right, I want to play the bad guy. I want to collect Horus's faction. So then you just got so many people like me. Like I haven't played CSM since they were last good, because I've just been playing them every time they come out because they're a hobby for me. I've got a whole Emperor's Children army, got a whole White Lords army. Like, there's so many interesting factions there that when they're good, they come out in force, because people generally they're a great hobby project to have, because like they're like Space Marines, but they actually look good because you can just customize them yourself.
Yeah, they do look epic.
Yeah,
They're just such a hobbyist army, aren't they?
Yeah.
I still vote you get in the bin for that comment. I love my loyalist boys.
I won a it's up there, the Stormbreaker Strike Force at an event, and what I did, and I had a great time doing this, I converted every single one of those Primaris Gravis Marines into possessed. I had a great time.
I mean, I'm disgusted, but I also really want to see that because that sounds really cool.
Yeah, my entire Chaos Army is completely converted, like every
That's
single
really
model.
cool.
Yeah, so
I have seen it,
yeah,
and it was cool. I was a fan. You've done a good job, and it's nice to see competitive players who are arguably some of the best players in the country, if not the world, actually putting some love into the hobby. Because one thing that you might get at club level are people saying, oh, people who go to tournaments they just rush their armies, which isn't true at all, because actually some of the best players in the world have got some of the best armies in the world when it comes to just the way that they look. I mean, I run Custodes, that's my thing. I like Custodes, and I am determined to do well with Custodes. I'm trying to ignore the noise in the background of telling me that they're bad. I know they've got a low win rate, but we're also represented like 10 times or whatever it is. However, we've got a low win rate because people who play Custodes sit in the box and just do the same things of what people expect Custodes to do. And I think that's part of the reason why they're not doing so well at the minute, is because Custodian players are literally just doing what they did when we had blobs of 10. They're just doing the exact same thing. But anyway, we're going to move past that. So Leagues of Votan were represented 41 times with their 57%. The Aeldari were represented 71 times, and probably the most represented. They were the most represented of the weekend. Other than Space Marines, who have... Obviously, Space Marines are weird because they get broken down into their task force. So it's very difficult to work out just how well Space Marines are really doing. One army that last week when we were looking at the meta, which were doing quite well, was Chaos Knights. Chaos Knights have if certain... under the right pilot, under the certain build, Chaos Knights are nuts. They've got a 50% win rate, which is right in the middle. But like I said, you get the right person on that, and they're winning tournaments. How do you feel about Chaos Knights, Dom?
Yeah, I think they're good. I think they're really good. The thing that Knights have always struggled with is the way of like getting around it. The thing that makes Chaos Knights so good is that they ignore that. They just go, right, here's a stratagem. I'm now going to walk through the building that you didn't realize I could walk through, and now I'm in combat. And they have just shed loads of indirect as well. Indirect is a massive problem. Like, it is huge. That's why CSM are doing well as well, because all the obliterators being able to melt you from out of line of sight. Come on. Like, but anyway, Chaos Knights are great because they skew the math, right? So they're high toughness, they have an invuln, they got a good save, and there's a vast number of them. It's not like there's 6 that trickle out every single turn. It's, here's my entire army, what are you going to do? And each of the knights is good at trading. So it really just skews your math. Like, can you hit? Can you wound? Can you get through the armor or invuln? If not, you're probably not going to do as much as you think. And now that there's not as many melter guns and metal pistols around, the knights are going to be staying a lot longer, because usually there's like 2 units in your army that have like a big knight punchy weapon. They'll be going for that first, because once that's gone, you can't really deal with them, and it just bogs you down.
I've actually become a bit of a fan of knights, and it's an army that I'm probably going to be doing next. Ooh. And I think what I like about them the most is that they're a converter's dream. I've seen people do some amazing conversions with them. They were, again, at one point probably one of the bottom armies to play. They're now creeping up at one on the top. It's one of those, if you're a good pilot, you're going to do really well with that list. You're going to do really well with knights. And it's something that I think all 3 of us can tell the viewers, tell people who do watch the stream, look, if you lose and you get smashed, That doesn't mean your army's bad. It doesn't mean it needs to go on the shelf. It doesn't mean any of that. All it means is that you need to play more games. You need to play variant home, and you need to just keep going. You need to go to tournaments, and you need to experience what it is actually like at a tournament, because gone are the days where people who go to a tournament are just going to be absolute sweaty monsters. Don't get me wrong, you're going to get to table 1, if you ever do, and you play the Manny Chimas, and you play the Dominic Maidlows, or if you go to an RTT local, you end up playing against me or Toby. The thing about it is it's not about what we bring, it's about the attitude that we bring to the table. And as much as there's been press in the past about certain players at the top, actually, if you actually went and played them, they've probably got more good praise about them than they have negative.
Totally agree.
And everybody is going to get stressed because, you know, they want to do well. But I think if you're coming into this hobby and you're not winning games straight away, don't see that as a negative. See that as okay, I didn't do this, I'm going to take this and I'm going to learn this. And if you come back and in the next game you improve that aspect of your game, you're winning. And then by the time you get to tournaments, every time you're going to improve. Do you honestly think like Dom walked in and was like winning tournaments straight off the bat? Absolutely not. I've only been playing tournaments for a couple years, and it's taken me one season to learn, and then the next season now I'm going in and I'm like, I can go to an event and I can think, right, 3-2 is worst case scenario.
Yeah, it's the mindset as well. It's like playing 4D chess. Like, you know your army's stress points. You know how and when to do certain things with your lists and armies. Like, especially with your custodians, you know the exact breaking point of the units or what they can and can't go up against. So when you've got the reps in, that's the only way you'll be able to understand that, because we can tell you, oh yeah, take this brick of this, or take the voidsman in a list, whatever. But you don't know how to use it. You don't have the reps. Like, it's what I always tell people is, like, you just need to play the game.
Yeah.
You need to play the game with the community around you that helps you bring you up and lifts you, and you're going to it'll accelerate you to the top tables.
Totally.
It's you know, Toby has come in with, he uses quite an off meta Space Marine list. He has the bikers in his list, which he uses for scoring because they're cheap, they're tough, and they move 18 feckin' inches.
Oh, that's cute.
And so not only do they move 18 inches, they're massive as well. So he moves blocks with them, he takes objectives, and he scores on them as well.
Can you stop giving away my secrets, please?
And and I just can't believe, like, people look at it and go, nah. But it's the same with, like, I literally posted in Canhammer the other day, and I was like, look, this is my Venatari list. I went 3-0 at an RTT, and they're like, I like the list, but Venatari are a bit pants. And I was just like, are you insane? I was like, so what? You don't like the fact that I can rapid ingress 3 units in one turn? And they're like, what? You can do that? And I'm like, absolutely, I can do that. But it's rapid ingressing them, but it's knowing what to throw them into, right?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
And dictating that pace of the game, I think with that rapid ingress is huge.
It is massive. So what we're going to do is we've talked about the meta. I hope Dom, this is your first time on here. How have you found it? What do you think to our little review podcast?
I like it, man. It's good, because this is the sort of thing I talk about with my team as well. We just kind of like chat in Discords and Facebook chats, and like we always like digress on like what happened on the weekend, and it's nice to just like sit and talk about it with like other people as well, because people have different views. Like, especially like the astropath thing I've picked up on, and as soon as I get off this, I'm going to be telling all the guard players in our team, and like all these different things. And now I've already stolen your bike idea. like
how many?
it's good.
Toby, tell him how many points are those 3 bikes?
95.
It's not bad. It's not
and
bad.
Tell us exactly what they do.
Okay, so I play Firestorm, so they've always got assault, and they get the +1. They were one of the biggest beneficiaries out of Oath of Moment dropping because they're twin linked. They've got -1 AP, which is surprisingly good at shaft clearance. They've got 12 attacks in combat. With their chainswords, which I know is a big dip compared to what they did have. They are not there to kill things, and people seem to still think they are. They are useless at killing things. But when they suddenly zip up 18 inches, and those, I think they've got about a 3-inch long base and an inch thick base. So they are just so good at getting in the way. They're also 2 OC a piece. So they outscore those elite units. Yeah. People really underestimate that. Suddenly they are OC 6 as a squad. So they outscore most small elite units. And because they can just suddenly appear on an objective and go, by the way, I'm here now. And being toughness 5, you can't deal with them with chaff clearance. Toughness 5 3-up save. You can't just throw bolters at them and expect them to fall over. 4 wounds apiece, so they're tough to make go down quickly. And when you look at my list, if someone is putting fire into that kind of unit versus a dreadnought versus my gladiator versus my land raider, giving away my list, stop talking.
Redeemer, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's broken.
Yeah. 260 points I've spent. I brought it so that I could bring 6 aggressors and a captain for Langdon, and then I've dropped the aggressors and the Langdon, and my list for Peterborough is called "What's this idiot putting in the Land Raider?" Because there's not any clear units to put in the Land Raider, and I'm not going to say what I'm going to put in there because that's going to be necessary.
Anything in there.
Well, exactly. This is the thing. It's just that those Flamestorm cannons, they were taking out Greater Demons. They were taking out Lim Russes in Overwatch.
It's that unit's about 50 points too cheap, and then you slap Armor Contempt on it. Oh, just get lost.
Well, because I'm playing Azrael, Armor and Contempt and Smoke is very easy to do in one turn.
Yeah.
So suddenly it's -1 to hit, cover, AOC, and a 2-up save naturally, and it's toughness 12. Like try shift that.
I mean, I did on Saturday. I one-shotted it.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah, you come across my Hellbrute Abaddon list.
And I think we
Azrael will step up and claim their faces.
So the next time we're gonna be hanging out with Dom, Toby, will be Leicester. Dom, you're at Leicester, so so you'll be able to catch us if you see us at Leicester, folks. Come say hello. Me and Toby are at Peterborough Slam as well this upcoming weekend. Come and see us. Toby's got the EAGT in Norwich coming up as well. As we go through, we'll talk about events we're doing next year. It's going to be a big year next year for Black Crow Gaming. We're going to be attending more events. Over the course of this weekend, we had several players playing in different tournaments all over the country. That's going to continue to happen, so it's very exciting. I think at EAGT we have 11 players present.
We do.
And that's also the same weekend as Cross Swords, which has another 6 other Black Crow players playing, I believe. So over the course of that one weekend, we have 17 Black Crow players at events.
Jesus. You're like Doomstealer, Cole.
We're just mass producing.
Popping up everywhere.
Yeah, and we're turning all of our players into beasts as well. It's great. We're kind of like the free developing service in Warhammer where we build a community. We don't charge people for it, and you get to not just make friends for free. Which is
I think the biggest thing that I've noticed with Black Crow is actually attitude and the way that people interact with each other. Like particularly the gents that organise a lot of it, the way that they just brought me in and accepted me, and I was saying to Arron yesterday, I almost feel a bit silly sometimes giving my opinion and giving my marketing stuff over because I'm just still so new to the team, but because of how welcoming all the guys are, I felt comfortable introducing more of my friends into the group. and everything like that. Yeah, I'm sermonizing. All right, get over it. You know, it's been a really, really positive impact, and it sounds like Mind Goblins are really really positive as well. Although, didn't you get that new player Candice?
Candice.
Ah!
Who?
What the hell was that? What joke have we just missed?
Oh, come on.
Candice.
Candice? Right, I'll let you Google it later. Although chat will probably tell you quite quickly.
Hold on. Wait a minute. Chat.
I'm so confused.
If no one gets this, I'm going to feel like an absolute twat. But
And on that note, it is the end of our podcast. Thank you very much for joining us, Black Crow Gaming, for Meta Monday. Dom, thank you very much for being a great guest. You've got myself, you've got Toby. If you like what you saw tonight, like and subscribe. If not for me, but just for Elder Toby, which you can see in the middle of the screen right now. We're going to be back next week. We're going to be talking about our experience at Peterborough Slam. And we're going to kind of do like a bit of a tournament review, and we'll probably have Corbin back with us to talk about that as well. But from us at Black Crow Gaming, thank you very much. Please make sure you check out Dom as well, and Let's Talk Wargaming. Thank you very much. Have a good night.